Eddie Ping, still right here.
Wishes up to tell hey, pretty pings. I can't go like yellow. You know, agent your bites the whistle. Works well.
Here I go, anti-Eddie Ping.
Yes, it's a William Brixit one these days. So it's still some after.
Here I go, anti-Eddie Ping.
Oh, ho.
It functions everywhere, sometimes without stopping, sometimes discontinuously. It breathes, it heats, it eats, it shits, it fucks. One mistake ever said the it everywhere. It is machines, not at all metaphorically. Machines of machines with their couplings, their connections. An organ machine is connected with a source machine. One emits a flux, which the other cuts. The breast is a machine that produces milk, and the mouth, a machine coupled to that one. The mouth of the anorexic hesitates between an eating machine, an anal machine, a talking machine, a breathing machine, deeper machine, asthma, attack. This is why we are all tinkerers, each with their own little machines. An organ machine for an energy machine. There are always flux and cuts. Judge Schreber 5 has divine rays in his ass. Solar anus. And rest assured it works. Judge Schreber feels something, produced of something, and theorized about it. Something is being deduced effects of machines, not metaphors. Of the schizophrenic. It's a better model than the neurotic lying on the couch. A bit of fresh air, a relationship with the outside. Take the stroll of Lenz into the outdoors. It is different from moments when Lenz finds himself with his good pastor, who forces him to situate himself socially in relation to God, in relation to Father, in relation to Mother. On the contrary, he is in the mountains under the snow with other gods or without God at all, without family, without father or mother, with nature. What does my father want? Can he give me better? Impossible! Leave me alone. Everything is a machine. And three celestial machines, the stars are rainbows, alpine machines, each coupled with those of his body, noise machine. Uninterrupted, idling to mutter. It must feeling of endless bliss to be in contact with the profound, life profound in every form. To have a soul for the rocks, metals, water, and plants, to welcome into oneself, as in a dream, every element of nature, like flowers that breathe with the waxing and waning of the moon. Och det lands att ge sig where både där vi multidagen ned, in the replies. Krongasam be a chlorophyllng machine or a photosynthesis machine, or at least slip his body as a part into such machines. Lenz put himself before the distinction of man nature, before all the identifications that this distinction conditions. He could not experience nature as nature, but as a process of production. There is no more man nor nature, only process that produces the one within the other and couples the machines together. Producing machine, desiring machine everywhere, schizophrenic machines, all generic life. Me and not me, exterior and interior don't mean anything anymore. That was me, Anti-Oedipus. That was me.
Into
Anti-Oedipus.
Oh. I still get a kick out of every time. I still get a fucking kick out of that goddamn song. Hello everyone. How are you doing? Welcome to the weekly reading for the Quarantine Collective of Anti-Oedipus. We are still in chapter 4.762. Oh god. We are still slowly making our way through the final section of Anti-Oedipus as we get through the final task of schizoanalysis, but also their final critiques of psychoanalysis, and also kind of a larger political theory that seems to be a major part of this entire thing. I'm crackling. I'm restarting my audio. One moment. All right. Hopefully there's not crackling this time. Thank you, Plant for Weirdos, for letting me know. Hello, everyone here in Discord. Let me get some stuff shared so that way everyone can be part of this reading. Go to here. Boop. And then, there we go. Lovely, lovely times. Am I posting this collection of streams? Yes. All of these are actually going into the Anti-Oedipus playlist for this time around. And then, as soon as this one's done, it is the book that never ends. We start again immediately following that, which will be something else. All right. Last week we went through a great deal. We actually made it through a huge amount. We're going to start again from the bottom of 360 with the piece on the work on the Ndembu that Turner did, as they make their way through and talk about the nature of their main critique of psychoanalysis and begin to make their moves again back into schizoanalysis and what they're talking about and how things are all moving. So it'll be lovely. It's going to be a lot. Don't hesitate to ask questions as we make our way through. Those of you who've been here, there's only a couple in the Discord. If you want to join, you're free to join the Discord, discord.gg/DGQC. Come say hi, ask questions in person, tell me I'm a shithead, tell me where you disagree, do whatever, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. But that's kind of where we're at. And I'm not going to restate too much. We're just going to get to reading because we're going to reread last week's final paragraph. And we can just get to it. Long live the Ndembu, for if we follow the detailed account by the ethnologist Turner, the Ndembu doctor alone has been able to treat Oedipus as an appearance, a decor, to go back to the unconscious libidinal investments of the social field. Oedipal familialism, even and especially in its most modern forms, makes impossible the discovery of what one claims nevertheless to be searching for today: schizophrenic social production. In the first place, it is futile to affirm that the family expresses a more profound social contradictions, for one confers on it a value as microcosm, gives it the role of a necessary relay for the transformation of social into mental alienation. What is more, one acts as if the libido did not directly invest the social contradictions as such, and in order to awaken, needed these contradictions translated according to the familial code. By that very fact, one has already substituted a familial causation or expression for social production, and finds oneself back within the category of idealist psychiatry. Whatever one's stake in all of this, society is thereby justified. All that remains to contest it with are vague considerations on the sick nature of the family, or, more generally still, considerations on the modern way of life. One has therefore glossed over what is essential: that society is schizophrenizing at the level of its infrastructure, mode of production, its most precise capitalist economic circuits, and that the libido invests the social field, not in a form where it would be expressed and translated by means of a familial microcosm, but in the form where it causes its non-familial breaks and flux, invested as such, to enter into the family. Hence, that the familial investments are always a result of the socio-desiring libidinal investments, which alone are primary. Finally, that mental alienation refers directly to these investments and is no less social than social alienation, which refers for its part to the preconscious investments of interest. Playlist of this current reading from start to current. I do. It's kind of buried. I'll get it up there in a little bit. All right. We're going to start by, I think, where we're going to be, where we usually are when we're doing chapter 4, to be perfectly frank, where it's more, hey, here's the stuff you don't need to know. Here's the stuff they're trying to disprove. One of the things that's very difficult about Anti-Oedipus as a thing is that it is working across many registers of human understanding. And that's putting it very lightly. But one of the registers it's really, really running along is psychoanalytic thought. A lot of people, as it is really not in vogue anymore, don't really know psychoanalytic thought or ascribe to it in a harsh, open way. It tends to be something that is more built into how we understand, and without a significant amount of sort of introduction via Freud or Lacan, Zizek, and others. Japanzik, I mean, there's a bunch. Klein, just Reich. Without these larger thinkers sort of helping you understand the language that they're using, the challenge becomes that in paragraphs like this, their commentary, which is a critique of the way that people talk or believe in psychoanalytic thought, becomes deeply opaque. For psychoanalysis, the family is a microcosm of the social space at large, but not in the way that, there's, it's a social space and that's a social space. No. It's a unique type of social space. Social space in which the child, as it's raised, because it's being raised by the parents and siblings, this family unit is actually a unique interpreter of the social world. Even more, it is primary to the social world. You are being raised by your family, psychoanalysis says, so your family has massive implications on you. And since you end up growing up and getting out in society, it's not so much that society makes you, but that your family and your relationship with your family makes society. This is the shorthand shit version. Don't run with this fully, but it's to help you understand what is happening inside of this paragraph. Because in this paragraph, they're saying, hey, wait, actually, Freud, Lacan, all you guys, the family isn't really that interesting. Not in that sense. The family isn't some unique thing. The family, because it's made of individuals who are produced by society, well, then society is actually what's primary. So as we go through here, keep in mind, this is the core of the critique as they're discussing it, as they're talking through these things. The core of the critique is to have a discussion around what does it mean for us to really need to work and fix a person. For psychoanalysis, it is you need to rightly be aligned with and understand the relationship you have with your father, your mother. The triangulation of them to you is what determines your health mentally for the rest of the world. Can you handle your father? Can you understand authority? Can you embrace the right kind of desire when it comes to your mother, young man, and not see her as a sexual object? Right? That you can see her as someone else's sexual object. And in fact, are you able to understand that you can't have her and that you must defer enjoyment? These lessons, blah, blah, blah. This is Freud. This is all this shit. So as we go through, see how they're attacking that idea. And they start by opening with, because why not make the opaque more opaque? They open with this fantastic work Victor Turner did on the Ndembu, which they reference and speak about actually at length, significantly. I would argue very significantly, in earlier parts of the book. The Ndembu tribe was work done by Victor Turner, as an ethnologist who spent time living with them and speaking with a handful of people. Others did studies on these too. The Ndembu is really fascinating. But the witch doctor that they talk about before, and again, this is not, it's not a negative sentiment. They notice that when he is speaking to someone who is clearly mentally unwell, that the way Turner describes it is he doesn't go into this theatrical, well, tell me about your father. Let's try to make sure that you're properly thought through and considered. But instead, the Ndembu doctor actually begins utilizing the stories that this young man who's very unwell is speaking about for his dead ancestors. And he begins using and rearranging these stories, using them to help kickstart the way that this guy's thinking, treating these Oedipal configurations that are surface level at best as phenomena and stories and set dressing for the larger discussions that's happening here. The healing practices the Ndembu show, and again, it's earlier in the book. I'm not in the mood to go back and reread it because it's a very complex series of paragraphs. But it gets at the young man's libidinal investments and how he feels about his dead ancestors and how he sees himself and all of that. But it doesn't do it in the sense of, well, now let's learn to write yourself. It's a proper schizoanalytic practice. This is why they open up the way they do here. Counter to that, the Oedipal familialism, which is not dealing with the direct impulses. It's not dealing directly with the repulsions or attractions or things that are happening inside of this young man. But instead, classic psychoanalysis deals with these family forms as if they were eternal, as if they were total, as if they were everything. So when he says Oedipal familialism, even and especially in its most modern forms, makes impossible the discovery of what one claims nevertheless to be searching for: schizophrenogenic social production. The social production that capitalism has as its own mechanisms, how social productions itself generates this process, how the genesis of the schizophrenic happens. When you're dealing with the Oedipal framework, it presumes it in the subject, in the analysand. It presumes it in the family. But also, generally, all of them have commentary on the social side, how all these things are built socially. They went through all of this sort of silliness and how these things go back and forth and become sort of self-contradictory. But this is kind of the big critique that they're sort of playing with and starting with. Is that making sense so far? Because the next part is kind of a lot. And it's not really easy to sort of go through unless I do it sentence by sentence in a very dry way. So I'll stop for a moment. See if anyone's going to shout at me. I was streaming late last night, so I'm just getting my tea going now. All right, I guess we go. In the first place, it is futile to affirm that the family expresses more profound social contradictions, for one confers on it a value as microcosm, gives it the role of a necessary relay for the transformation of social into mental alienation. When you treat the family as microcosm, which means a representative miniature, shrunk down, right? Like the social forces at large, it's a microcosm. The family is a microcosm. When you do this mediation that happens where everything must be translated first. Oh, the social order, again, often authority is your father. The demure enjoyment is your mother. These things, when this is happening, everything becomes familial terms. When that happens, before the libido can even engage directly with it, when you claim this, when libidinal investment just deals directly on social contradictions without familial representation, there is a fucking huge problem. They say, what is more, one acts as if the libido cannot directly invest the social contradictions as such. In order to awaken need of these contradictions, it translated according to the family code. The translation is necessary. The mediation's necessary in psychoanalytic thought. You have to bring it back to these things. You have to always be returning it to this. You have to be talking about it in terms of mother, father, yourself, family, how you get along, how you deal. And again, this is something that is so deeply bled into our culture. You can find lots of examples of this, to be perfectly frank, especially in the last week, for certain in public discourse. But by doing so, they say, by that very fact, one has already substituted a familial causation or expression for social production, finds oneself back within the categories of idealist psychiatry. The underlying thing this book is going for, when they call it capitalism, schizophrenia, materialist psychiatry, they're aiming for that. Their goal is to find a way to bring materialism into a space that is deeply idealist, that is dealing with things in terms of that in this register beyond experience, necessarily beyond experience, because the material side of things basically is about, and we've been understanding since Marx and Nietzsche and others talking about this, the idea of how things are produced socially, how we exist in time, and as we grow inside of the social space and the material conditions of the world produce us, that we in turn affect the material production of things and this cycle. But the idealist conception that there is family outside of that, or this mediated plane that actually becomes that, the substitute of the family for social causation is a return to idealism, counter to the supposed materialist that people really talk about and try to talk about in these. Again, Zizek spends time talking about Marx and materialism and all this. There's a huge idealistic category that's happening here, though, because material social processes talked about through or being affected by or even created by mental or familial categories. It moves you straight out of the materialist production realm at its base. Just straight up, you're there. And that thing that's happening there, that ideology, that ideological function that's taking place here, that occurs, basically exists only by sort of deflecting this critique of social production to a familial pathology. The entire thing then basically absolves the capitalist society because the family's the problem. Did I swell up for a moment? Audio-wise, did it get really bad? Audio got horrible for a second there. Fascinating. Why? In Discord, was it bad for you? The audio?
It was too little.
I lost all my audio. That would be why. Excellent. Something is afoot. Don't talk. One sec, Ben. Audio. Oh, that's back. Ben, say hello. LJ, say hello.
Hello.
Hey, JK. All right.
How's it going?
Good. Weird. I don't know why that happened. Let's see if I can prevent it from happening again. Let's find out. Anyway, familialism basically deflects critique by beginning with the family, by starting there. We are immediately absolving the social systems at large because the family becomes the thing. The child isn't grown right. It's because the parent didn't raise them correctly. Something was wrong in their family. They had dysfunctional families, which resulted in people who are dysfunctional, not a social system at large that produces everybody. This becomes an issue, we'll just say, when we start talking about how we more understand now, especially now, that things are very social. Very, very, very social. And then there's this sort of large block, and I don't think it's possible to not just take it all as one, because it's really the last bit here. One has therefore glossed over what is essential, that society is schizophrenize at the level of its infrastructure, its mode of production, its most precise capitalist economic circuits, and that the libido invests in this social field, not in a form where it would be expressed and translated by means of a familial microcosm, but in the form where it causes its non-familial breaks and flux, invested as such to enter into the family. We'll kind of stop there because I'll do the second half, but this is more or less the crux of their critique of psychoanalytic thought. And it's important we go over this paragraph. I know it's a little dry for the next one. We got stuck on this last week because it's a lot. But society itself produces the schizophrenic processes through the infrastructure that exists. Capitalism and how it functions. Its own contradictory operations, the dialectically contradictory operations, right? This is the base. The libidinal investment, the way desire, the connective impulses of humanity operate is through direct investment of the social field. This creates non-familial breaks and flux. These enter the family as effects, but not causes. This is how, because they're not saying there's no such thing as families. We're aware that people are raised and have small in-groups that they call family, that they're born of, genetically linked to, or adopted into, whatever it is, family, that thing. Family dynamics are secondary results of primary libidinal investment. They're secondary. The family and issues you have within your family are actually indicative of larger stresses that are being experienced on a larger scale. There is a microcosm almost-ish way to look at the family through schizoanalysis. There are people you deal with all the fucking time. It's not like they're not part and parcel to how you exist. It's not how it works. The crackle still happening? Is the crackle happening here in Discord?
Yeah, like a couple of minutes ago, you were kind of have like
when I restarted, when I did the restart, did it happen after that?
No, I don't know. But while I came here, like in the middle, when you talked a little bit, right? When you talked, there's a couple of cracking.
What the fuck? Thank you for letting me know.
No problem. I want to mention, like, like that's the state of the thing, you know. The primary is the libidinal investment. These investments that come in molar aggregate, right? And these investments are breaks, and these breaks kind of like whatever there is a break, also there is kind of like this break is channeled in another kind of place, without like the presence of representation, and without this kind of representation or familiar relation. Sometimes desire going like invest in things that we are unaware of, right, or cannot recognize as such, right? So it's kind of like superseded, right? It's kind of like supersede the thing.
Okay.
I guess. Yeah. Yeah. It's again. You have a problem with your mic. Yeah.
I'm just gonna restart the computer, and I will be back. This is the easiest way for me to fix it. So apologies. Don't go anywhere. I will return. I promise. Probably. Unless my computer decides not to. Which is also entirely fucking possible at this point. Return shortly. One moment. Should be live and actually running pretty decently. Just give me a second to get everything back up on Discord, because everyone got me disconnected now. Should be running though. Always fun. My favorite thing. And rejoin. All right. Sorry for that, everybody. All right. In theory, I should be here talking. Is everyone here hearing me at least? Happy days.
Yeah. It sounds fine.
All right, good. Always fun. All right, let's go to the reading tab. There we are. Up we go. Boom, 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 boom. And we're back. All right. If the crackle happens again, I don't know what to do. I have a Threadripper. Threadripper CPU is amazing. It's one of the most powerful things you can have. It's wonderful. It takes a little bit of extra technical work to get it to really be utilized. One of the great challenges is it seems that Windows just doesn't like using it. Very annoying the way it handles interrupts. What can you do? I feel like at this point, though, I'm repeating myself when we're talking about what's happening inside of the family, schizoanalysis, psychoanalysis, everything they're going over. That thing, I am kind of at this point repeating myself more or less. Has everyone been following generally? Get the jam? This is what they're going for, and it's the thing they're aiming at, is taking the idea that the family is not a microcosm of society in the sense of it is something that everything is translated to. All the problems of the world are translated into dad or mom, brother, sister, whatever. Then to me, it is that the mom and dad who are directly invested socially are experienced through the child who is also directly investing socially, that there isn't like a pre-social realm of the family, which is not far from actually how a lot of psychoanalytic literature handles things, to say the least. Why is that not working suddenly? God damn. But does that follow for everyone? Questions, thoughts, anything, please?
Yeah. I don't get more kind of personal, but in this kind of regard, in this day, kind of like I will get personal a little bit, right?
Okay. All right.
Brooks, my uncle was diagnosed with some kind of bipolar,
Okay.
right? and when we visit the, you know, psychoanalyst like office, right? All of the things that kind of like all of the things that kind of like in the room, like the same thing, but like he said, like could you please, like could you please you know, get out from the psychoanalyst, let me alone with with my acquaintance, right, with my kind of with my uncle, right? Like he literally said to us, like, get out, right? If you interrupt more, like interrupt the session, you get out. So the point is that, like, this kind of like isolation, right? This kind of isolation, like it feels like isolated, right? It feels kind of like there's kind of like a cracking down of the family, kind of like how can I say it? The analyst himself is kind of isolated, sterile, to put the word sterile, right? Kind of a sterile thing, right? And I'm not joking. I'm not saying like, but like when I saw my uncle like sitting there and he kicked this out, like Brooks. He kind of kick my father, kick my, like he kicked us out. Like he said, no, you know, when we trying to interrupt to correct like the session, he kicked us out. So I don't know. Like I think I kind of understand Deleuze based on my kind of experience, I guess.
I mean, that's
right.
I mean, technically all of us, but yes, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
And it is one of the great challenges when a lot of these things happen. I've gone through my share of counseling and counselors and psychotherapists, psychologists. I've gone through my share, and the reality, sure, family is definitely part of the conversation. I certainly wouldn't say otherwise. I mean, God, of course, they have a significant impact, but there's a difference between saying that impact is a thing. There's a difference between saying that, you know, your father and, you know, that he beat you every day. Yeah, this matters. But it's not that it's actually like a small focused version of social. It is the social. It's the social. It may be closer, sure, but it's the social. The social's being directly invested. People are not simple when they're children, to the point where how dad tells you what the world is or what dad demonstrates for you is therefore how everyone is. It's more that the nervousness, the things dad cares about, the way that care is exhibited becomes the thing. And when we teach kids that the relationship with your father and mother, that I'm your father, you need to listen to me, I'm the law here, well, that creates a relationality, an almost symbolic substitution. It's this is what I talked about in kind of my video that I went out with yesterday. It's I mean, the whole video is basically this semiotic structure that they're going over here, but the way that people have these things crushed into symbols and become the simplistic, this setup creates its own repression and creates the desire for its own repression.
Yeah. And it creates. By the way, Brooks, like a lot of psychoanalysts, like I experienced that in Egypt, going to Egypt. A lot of psychoanalysts, because the structure there is very, very militaristic, authoritarian, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Egypt, right? A lot of kind of like, how can I say it? TikTok influencers, like, who pretend that they are psychoanalysts, and a lot of psychoanalysts also, right, who are kind of like, even if you describe to them like, oh, the society and these kind of things, no, let's divulge to the person, to you, right? And it's kind of, how can I prescribe it? It's kind of like ineffective way, because You're talking about the government, you're talking about the society, you're talking about, civil society, right? And they divulge to the person, to the kind of to the, how can I say it? It's kind of a reduction per absurdum, right? It's kind of like reductionism, right? I experienced multiple times like this, with my uncle, and it's kind of like, how can I say it? Very, very sometimes insidious, and sometimes it's kind of like, because these people, I'm not kind of saying, oh, these psychoanalysts are like are not credible or these kind of things, but like, yeah, I understand the point of Deleuze, what Deleuze trying to say, right? Is that sometimes it's not about the person, it's not about the family, right? It's about like, because the bipolar that like my uncle, had effect on him, is that due to multiple things. Probably because he was in Portland, Oregon, working at a pizza job, right, while he paying his college tuition in America, right? He's not an American, but he lived in Portland, Oregon, and he trying to kind of manage between paying his tuition, and he's an immigrant, right? And he's a foreigner in America, right? And between his kind of um, like paying between working in pizza shop and working cleaning the dishes, right? So it's not about like, it's more complex than that, right? And the people who torment him, right? He end up being homeless in Portland, Oregon, right? And he end up being kind of like neglected, and he experienced multiple fucked up things like that I cannot like say. But yeah, I understand. I understand. Like, it's about the sociist. It's about like, it's the debate. It's not about ideology. It's about
Right.
like the dependency of the economic. The economic is the factor. It's not about this bullshit guru. You yourself is the problem. You're part of the symptom bullshit. It's not about that. And yeah, sorry, I'm being kind of
No.
hyperbolic.
Yeah, like that's the whole point of this. So you're doing fine. You're doing
Um,
fine.
I'm just curious, how does this experience in Portland connect to your experience of your uncle kicking other people out in the counseling room? How does that connect?
No, I mean the psychoanalyst, right? You know, pushing like like I experienced that multiple times, pushing people outside, kind of the family out. Like he never.
Who pushed who out? Because you were saying your uncle
No,
pushed.
no. I mean the mother and the father and these kind of things. He pushed these kind of people outside the framework, and whatever like these things. I noticed that, right, that these things that psychoanalysts like say, like if you said about society, if you said about politics, right? If you talked about politics, for example, in Egypt, if you talked about politics, right, the psychoanalyst will not pay attention to that, right? And he will pay attention.
Will not pay attention?
No, I'm saying the psychoanalyst that I talked to in Egypt, right?
Yeah, what did you say? I didn't hear what you said. You
I
said they
said
will
that
not
the
pay.
psychoanalyst who I talked to in Egypt, right, and in kind of in Tunisia, right, because I traveled
Yeah,
to
what
Egypt
about
and
them?
Tunisia.
What is it about them that you were saying? They do not pay attention to
They
politics?
they they push aside the political aspect, the civil war that happened in Libya, the thing that like the political catastrophes, the civil war, these things,
I
and
see.
they kind of revulge to like, oh, like I talk like even when my uncle, because my uncle suffered with me in the civil war, right, in Libya. So even if I said to the psychoanalyst, I said to him, right, there is a civil war there, and there's thing. Oh,
Okay, I
and
do
he
not
kind of
disagree with this part. I just don't
yeah.
know how does the denial of the political situation have anything to do with the detail where the analyst pushed other people out of the room, because per the law
No, because
you can only
we
have
kept
one.
because we kept correcting like my uncle because he has bipolar,
Yeah,
and we kept
because
correcting him.
that's not how usually things works, right? Because regardless of how political or relevant the political situation is, usually for most of the time, a psychoanalyst only talk with one person in the room at a time. Most of the time. This is regardless of how much it has to do with the political situation.
And I don't think, and Marcellus, you can tell me, just because I want to bridge a little bit of a gap, because I think there's one forming. Marcellus is not saying, I don't think, that the Marcellus, PK is putting it best in chat. This is a criticism of the one-on-one approach and the nature of that relationship.
Exactly.
And which is, again, I think, so this is, I hate getting rabbit holed, but I've got no choice. So, one of the challenges is, having family members correct for someone, especially in that relationship, is really, really bad. Flatly.
Yeah.
Like, that's just, that's not good. It's not helpful. But also, like, both things can be true, by the way. Both things can be true. Because it's also
choosing between lesser evil. That's a lot of times.
It varies, but yeah.
Yeah, in clinic. It's basically like, I see that all the time, especially when I'm shadowing under a psychiatric department in generalized hospitals in the more continental systems. It's basically, you know, like 101 versus letting family members correcting the client. It's very clear to any nurse or clinicians that which side is better. Very, very clear. There is no doubt in there, right? I'm not saying like, oh, this is not a concern, or one-on-one approach is just going to eliminate all the problem, and then, you know, one-on-one approach is going to make family structure solve everything. I'm not saying that, but I feel like it's a bit of a stretch to say that one-on-one approach is going to put the analyst at a anti-political situation. I think that's way too much of a stretch. Way too much. And I don't think that fits into what the text is describing here.
I'm not saying anti-political. I'm saying they don't have regard to this kind of political aspect. I'm not saying anti-political.
How do you know that?
Because I've been there. Because I did.
Pull back. This is so, LJ. One, just letting you know, coming across a little strong. Marcellus, 100% I can tell you LJ is not critiquing or criticizing. It's questioning, because this is LJ's world. LJ cares very deeply about this and is trying to understand fully. So no one get tilted. Everyone chill.
Sorry, I this is a personal, but sorry, I lied. Sorry.
No, and also culturally, look, let me just, because we're going to keep reading for sure. The challenge becomes, and this is, again, one of the things the book is very much after. If you want more readings on this, I do recommend a lot of Felix's work following this and before this on, transversality alone, and the work he's talking about there and how the clinic operates is incredible. One of the challenges becomes, how do you actually have a conversation with someone and really get at things when the analyst, does in traditional psychoanalytic thought, reduces everything that the analyst and is talking about to mommy, daddy, me, removes political, social things that matter at a larger scale, removes other elements that people around them may be very aware of. And again, I'm going to go and say that it's about the indembu. And that's what we're going to go back. We're going to go back. just chill out. We're gonna go back a little bit because I do think this is literally the point. So I kind of want to spend time and get this right. We are talking about page 1. Is that one? Fuck, I hate my PDF so much. So 153, I think. No, 160. I can't even tell. Come on. Yeah, it's 168, I think. And no, I don't want to do that. Jesus Christ. Says PDF is all fucked up. Just 1 second. There we go. This is the right area, at least. Victor Turner. We're going to talk about Victor Turner. We're going to read this. We're going all the way back to chapter 2, because why the fuck not? Why the fuck not, indeed? We're going to talk about the Ndembu. And again, when we talk about family or how someone's dealing with family or their critique of all of this, they're not critiquing necessarily dealing with the patient one-on-one. They believe that contributes greatly to this for good reason. Guattari's had a psychoanalytic practice and be part of this. And I think anyone who's been part of a psychoanalytic practice is sensitive to this idea that the way that these things function, the way that we set things up, the way that up front we build what it is. And we build Oedipus up front. The triangulation that takes place, that's the whole point. So we're going to talk about Victor Turner's example of K. K is the sick person. The letter K. The Ndembu have very complicated names. Victor Turner also not super interested in trying to fail to write them down properly. Victor Turner gives a remarkable example of such a cure among the Ndembu. The example is the more striking to our perverted eyes for the fact that at first glance everything appears Oedipal. Effeminate, insufferable, vain, failing at everything he tries. The sick K is preyed upon by the ghost of his maternal grandfather, who cruelly reproaches him. This is as K is describing it, this is the understanding of it, and also this is a general description of K. You can read Turner's piece. We've got the entire thing translated in the QC somewhere. It's a lot, but it's a really, really interesting read. Now, keep an eye on that. The maternal grandfather. Although the Ndembu are matrilineal, must live within their maternal kin, K has stayed an exceptionally long time in the matrilineage of his father, whose favorite he was, and has entered into marriage with paternal cousins. But with the death of his father, he's driven away, returns to his maternal village. So the way the Ndembu function, like this is kind of the whole thing. The way that the Ndembu function here is kind of the jam of what is happening. They are by nature matrilineal. You end up with that. But because he was loved by his dad, and his dad cared about him a great deal, he stayed too long with his father's family, basically. And now, having gone back to his maternal village, returned to this, the way that they function, he's having these crises. There, his house expresses his situation well, wedged between two sectors, the houses of the members of the paternal group and those belonging to his own matrilineage. How does the divination responsible for indicating the cause of the illness proceed, and the medical cure responsible for treating it? This is the Ndembu witch doctor, which it may be an offensive term, but it's, I think, in this case, very apt. The nature of what the doctor comes along, he's fixing him. He's doing it with crazy shit for our perverted eyes, but he's not necessarily reducing things to purely, oh, this is your mother's, oh, this is your father's setup. This entire thing is playing in a very different direction. He does it with the teeth. The teeth are the cause. Top 2 incisors of the ancestor hunter contained in a pouch, but which can escape from the pouch and penetrate the body of the sick man. They lay the teeth of the pouch on him. In order to diagnose and ward off the effects of the incisor, the soothsayer, the medicine man, launch into a social analysis concerning the territory and its environs, the chieftainship, its sub-chieftainships, the lineages, their segments, the alliances, the affiliations. They constantly bring to light desire and its relations with political and economic units, the very point on which, moreover, the witnesses try to mislead them. There is a discussion ceremony. It's very surreal to sort of talk about this way, but there's a discussion ceremony of sorts as this the doctor, the tribal doctor, begins sort of operating, you might say, by discussing and talking about these things, putting the teeth on, the other elements. But by doing so, the setup isn't really playing in a really particular way towards saying, oh, this is because of your mother, even though it's the maternal grandfather. It's his symptoms are mapped by this guy who has no psychoanalytic training, no college degree, does not exist in the modernist world. But what he's mapping the symptoms of is not familial triangulations, but the political succession crisis that is happening inside of K. The maternal grandfather for K was the great chief. But because of colonial disruption, because again, Victor Turner's there, he's not alone. There's a lot of shit happening to the poor in Dembu. It's not a good day for them, we'll just say. Not a good month or year, actually a couple of years. But this crisis that has been created, this legitimacy vacuum that has been made, has tons of invalid claimants, because as their system breaks down, they're experiencing it very directly. K may seem to have an Oedipal conflict. We can have that. We can make that argument very easily. It's his maternal grandfather. He's back to where his mother lived. Oh, this is a relationship of that. But it's actually his failed attempt to assume a mediating role in his family to establish political authority. So the healers who are doing all of this, they deal with this by talking about this larger social analysis. They map territorial relations. They discuss them out loud with him. They make these things and objects that he's attracted to in these various circles part of it. The lineages, the chieftainships, the alliances, all of these things. There's a lot happening here. I'm kind of jumping a little bit ahead. To just say, it seems the pathological incisor is indeed mainly that of the maternal grandfather, but the latter was a great chief. His successor, the real chief, had to relinquish the throne for fear of being bewitched. His would-be heir, intelligent and ambitious, does not exercise power. The actual chief is not the real chief. As for the sick K, he has not been able to assume the role of mediator. They could have made him candidate for chief. Everything becomes complicated because of the colonizer-colonized relations. The English there have not recognized the chieftainship. They don't do that. Why would they? The chieftainship doesn't make sense to them. And also, they're trying to overpower and take on all of this. The village is impoverished, falling into just basically disrepair. The 2 sectors of the village, where his house is in the middle, quite literally, are there because the 2 groups that exist have fled the English. The elders are bemoaning the decadence of the youth and the decadence of the invaders. These are, again, there's a universality to experience at the base of this. The medicine man does not organize a sociodrama, but a veritable group analysis centering on a sick individual, giving him potions, attaching horns to his body for drawing up the incisor. These are mythical things. Making the drums beat. The medicine man proceeds with the ceremony interrupted by halts and fresh departures, fluxes of all sorts of words and breaks. Members of the village come to talk. K, the subject, the sick subject himself talks. The ghost of the grandfather, the maternal grandfather, is invoked. The medicine man explains. Everything recommences. Drums, chants, trances. It is not only a question of discovering preconscious investments of social field by interests, but more profoundly, all of what we've just described here, all of what Turner's talked about, all of what Kay has gone through, all of what this medicine man has done, it's unconscious investments by desire, such as they pass by way of a sick person's marriages, his position in the village, and all the positions of a chief lived in intensity within the group. All of this, they continue, because there's a reason I go back to this. We said that the point of departure seemed Oedipal. It was only the point of departure for us, conditioned to say Oedipus every time someone speaks to us of father, mother, grandfather. In fact, the Ndimbu analysis was never Oedipal. It plugged directly into social organization and disorganization. When I started that story, most of you probably went, oh, yeah, no, okay, so between mom and dad, because that's divorced parents is a thing we're aware of. People have these social registers, these symbolic connections, this understanding of how they're supposed to be dealing with these things, socially, emotionally, realistically, whatever it may be. But all of these things that are at play, this is us seeing them as Oedipal, when in reality, they are just the social sphere. Not through them. They are the social sphere. They're just people we deal with closer. That's it. Yeah, that would be it. All right. For some reason, my cool sliding in and out thing stopped working, which is very frustrating. That's okay. Where the fuck was I? I don't think we were quite that far. Nope, we were maybe. Cool. Sorry, everyone. So what happens when I go back? I don't think we made it that far. God damn it. 1 second. I have to go back in the VOD and find out where the fuck I was. The whole thing. 360. Yeah, I didn't think we were that far. All right. There. All right. I hope that helps. I'm sorry, I went off a little bit on a tangent there, but this is the thing they're driving at. This is the thing we were just, and again, it's hard not to make this the center of things and hard not to sort of replicate ourselves in those things. Like naturally, very quickly, because of the way that we are raised, the way that we are taught, the way that we are told. All these things come back to family. All these things come back to how we feel about our father, how we feel about our mother, that our mother is a stand-in for all these things. And we need to understand that our father is another stand-in, that we are effectively stand-ins for them as well. The symbolic, movable positions of things, very easily we get lost in. Questions, comments, anything, please. Did that help at all? Marcellus, LJ, anyone?
Yeah. It helped a little bit. It helped. Some of my experiences kind of like match on, right? Especially the early, not experiences. Like it's goofy to say it's experiences, because but like some of my experiences are match on like very well, right? The fact that like because during the session with my uncle, we talked like the first like first kind of like minute, that I think 40 minutes, right? I talked with the kind of like the analyst, and the analyst like let us kind of like say, but the second when we start to interrupt more, or interrupt like, because some of the things that he kind of saying kind of like wasn't match on, like it's a cathartic experience, but like there's kind of like I'm pointing out that there's some kind of reductionism, right, to what the analysts do, which is kind of like the fact that there's like no civil war, the fact that he doesn't recognize civil war or these kind of things and divulge to the person, right, to the person as such, and like I think that the psychoanalysts, wants money more than, it's a job more than like they want money, right? That's the nature of it, right? Like that's the nature. Like
Yeah,
they
I
want
guess-
money. You give them money, like you kind of. It's that simple. Their interest is aligned with capital. That's it. That's
Yes.
my conclusion. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it.
that's also, I think, everyone's interests are aligned with capital is one of the difficulties of these things. But yes, I think that's a fair part of this. Big part of this, actually. So to continue to the new paragraph, which eventually we'll maybe finish another paragraph on this one. This is going to also get... Pardon me. Have I been crackling up and breaking up at all here? Wait, so the witch doctor mapped the issue Kay was experiencing similar to psychoanalysis. No, the opposite. That's their point. That we could make the mistake, and it would be easy to make the mistake. And that's kind of, again, it's why it's one of the reasons I don't like going back into the book. We could easily make the mistake of saying that what the witch doctor's doing, what this healer is doing, is bringing back Oedipal things, because there's images and things related to the father and the grandfather. But another way to look at it, because it's Oedipal to us, doesn't mean it's Oedipal to them. And it isn't, as Turner breaks it down in the entire thing, if you want to give it a read, is worthwhile. But even though it's got the parts, all of the parts of the Oedipal relationship, the father, the mother, the relationship of such a thing, how they come together, it's not directly Oedipal, that it's directly related to actually the power structures, because he could be in line. There's a vacuum. That vacuum of power is actually pulling at him, and it's actually the social system at like overall. That's what they're actually doing, is helping him deal with all of it. That's different than the Oedipal situation, which returns it to you. Which page specifically? That was 260. Sorry.
168, I think.
168, thank you.
Would
If
you
you
say
search,
that
if you
the,
search, we said the point of departure seemed Oedipal. That's the beginning of the paragraph. We said the point of departure seemed Oedipal. Go for it, JK.
Would you say that the in Nimbu performing a kind of schizoanalysis or a precursor of what,
that is the argument they're making? Yes.
Okay.
That the Ndimbu is a primitive version of it, because it deals with a different type of social era and different social way of existing. Because again, they didn't live within capital. They were experiencing the transition from one to another.
Sure.
But yeah, very much that they were dealing with and understood that the symbols of things or the placement of things, the fungibility part of the symbols, those weren't the thing, that it was actually the lived experience and relationships and attractions and repulsions and impulses that Kay was experiencing directly in the social field that were creating all of this.
So how much of the Marxist critique is aligned with the schizoanalysis?
It's extreme. Well, I read it as extremely Marxist. And I think Deleuze and like they're really doing their best to go that direction. But this is Marx when he says that we shouldn't be looking towards the capitalists or the symbols of things or the structure. He's talking more about the superstructure and the production, the actual production as it happens, how labor is utilized, how labor drives and pushes things, instead of the, oh, well, this is because we have capitalists here and workers here and managers here. That's how the business works. No, it's the working process is what matters. And the elimination of sort of the symbolic ideal version of things is what allows us to start seeing labor, or in this case, desire, and how desire and the impulses move through things and are sort of formed and generated.
So is there inherent in capitalism idealism of patriarchal structure that conditions the Oedipal complex in psychoanalysis?
So capitalism's a double whammy. It's not necessary that within capitalism there is a patriarchal structure, but because capitalism sort of utilizes the systems it does of axiomatics and abstractions, and capital itself being sort of this odd place where all of our meaning is sort of divulged and brought to this location in the marketplace. What happens is the structures of things, the superstructures of things, take on a more real seeming or a direct sort of way of crushing what came before or what produced it. When we talk about capital, we often think of it as the cause of itself. I invest money into a business. That's why the business exists. But it's not how that works. How that works is money in a business is invested because there is actual demand for a thing. It doesn't matter how much money you pump into something. If no one gives a fuck, no one gives a fuck. Basically, jobs aren't created by job creators. They're created by demand. So this weird thing happens where we give this quasi-cause ideality to capital. This process, and it's more than that, this is again all of section 2 and ultimately 3 sort of come back on this. This interfaces alongside the leavings, the old machinery, because the break between the despotic and capital isn't one of true revolution that like all of it went away. Now all we've got is capital. No, it's because capital is, as it functions, part of this larger state and meaning control apparatus and top-down hierarchy systems. And the ones that were there, we have found ways to sort of backfit in and return the repression to the family, and the family being the center of it, because it is the last place where we can have axiomatics generated, which is what capital needs. It's where we can have these things set up, becomes less directly obviously patriarchal. Capital doesn't really care about that, but more just recreating those same systems over and over. It's why we end up with the racism built into capitalism, sexism built into capitalism, all these things, because this is, as people are fungible, as the lived people are fungible within those sort of symbolic places, because capital utilizes this as part of the superstructure. It drives us forward inside of that. So it's less a capital chooses that and more makes its way through. I don't know if that makes sense as I'm saying it. Does that, JK? No. Huh? PK says it makes sense. JK, see, there's too many Ks here. And we're talking about K. It's a lot of Ks. Sorry, JK. Go for it. I'm not hearing anything from you, JK. I don't know if you're trying to talk. I don't think it's on my end. No, you're not activating. That's okay. My brain's dying. It was like 9 directions. That was a lot. We didn't even get to a new paragraph yet. What the fuck? We didn't even get to a new paragraph yet. Holy shit. Yeah. Shall we do the next paragraph? Is there anything more on this one that anyone wants some time spent on? Oh, God. Donald Trump just tweeted that he wants Ukraine to defeat Russia in the war. I'm just someone sent me that just now, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
You know, Brooks,
What a world.
Ukraine's situation is similar to Palestinian situation. You know, any country that like invade another country or kind of like killing a bunch of people, like it's not kind of like you know, you lose me in this kind of like thing, right? Like I think that the United States as a government now, it's a failed government. You can say it's a failed government.
For sure.
Yeah. So it's value the people who are like the law now, because America, I'm not an American, right? But I see America as yeah, I'm not an American, but like I see that like America as the police of the world at that time, even like, and this meaning start to shift, right? We give the leverage to the people who are kind of thug and kind of like, Trump is like a perfect Middle Eastern politician, right? Or a perfect Middle Eastern kind of politician, or I equated always like a Middle Eastern politician, because he's like acting like a thug. He's literally a thug, right? That's the meaning.
Right. No, he is. But again, so here's look, sorry, we're taking a break from AO just for a second because I'm fascinated by this. He posted just now after getting to know and fully understand, because he met with Zelensky and a bunch of others of the EU, which is after getting to know fully understand the Ukraine-Russia military economic situation, after seeing the economic trouble it's causing Russia, I think Ukraine, with the support of the EU, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form. With time, patience, and financial support of Europe, and in particular NATO, the original borders from where this war started is very much an option. Why not? Russia has been fighting aimlessly for 3.5 years, a war that would have taken a real military power less than a week to win. Like, and he goes on, it's a very long post. It's like...
Because fascists like other fascists, Like, because fascists like other
I'm not
fascists.
sure Zelensky's a fascist.
No. I'm saying Trump favoring Russia, right? Because like he think himself a businessman and these kind of things, and he's not a businessman. He's a fool. He's an idiot, and he's a thug. That's it.
Yeah.
That's his legacy, right? That's his legacy.
It is just a hell of a thing to see this kind of 180-degree turn. Just fascinating. Just fascinating.
Yeah, but like a leader. By the way, a leader who
he called them a paper tiger in this. Someone else wrote this for him. He called them a paper tiger. That's not a phrase. he understands. What
Yeah.
the fuck?
That is a commonly used phrase in Chinese
I-
context.
It's a commonly used phrase in a lot of contexts. It is not a phrase in the head of Donald Trump.
Maybe there's some people who helping him, given that he kind of maybe there's some people who cleaning the like the same with the email thing.
It's
But
so
I don't know.
strange. So strange.
Maybe
Wow.
there's some people or
right.
cleaning after. Oh.
Let's do our best to actually read this and make our way through and continue to the next paragraph. Is everyone okay with that? I have now gone off. I don't know. I'm off the fucking rails on this reading. This is not my favorite reading I've done, but what can I say? It is what it is. This is a long one. God damn it.
Let's do it, Brooks. Let's do it because yeah.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Not only does one thereby fail to correctly evaluate social production in its pathogenic nature, but secondly, one also fails to understand the schizophrenic process and its relationship with the schizophrenic as a sick person. For one attempts to neuroticize everything, and doubtless one thus conforms to the family's mission, which is to produce neurotics by means of its Oedipalization, its system of impasses, its delegated psychic repression, without which social repression would never find docile and resigned subjects, would not succeed in choking off the flux's lines of escape. We don't feel any need to attach the slightest importance to psychoanalysis's claim to cure neurosis, since, for it, curing consists of an infinite maintenance, infinite resignation, an accession to desire by way of castration, and the establishment of conditions where the subject is able to spread to pass the sickness to his offspring, rather than dying celibate, impotent, and masturbatory. Again, perhaps it will be discovered that the only incurable is the neurotic, whence interminable psychoanalysis. It is a cause for self-congratulation when one succeeds in transforming a schizo into a paranoiac or a neurotic. Such a transformation perhaps entails many misunderstandings, for the schizo is the one who escapes all Oedipal, familial, and personological references. All no longer say me, all no longer say daddy mommy, and he keeps his word. Now the question is, first, if that is what makes him ill, or if, on the contrary, that is the schizophrenic process, which is not an illness, not a breakdown, but a breakthrough, however distressing and adventurous, breaking through the wall, or the limit separating us from desiring production, causing the flux of desire to circulate. Lang's importance lies in the fact that, starting from certain intuitions that remained ambiguous in Jasper's, he was able to indicate the incredible scope of his voyage, with the result that schizoanalysis would come to nothing if it did not add to its positive tasks the constant destructive task of disintegrating the normal ego. Lawrence, Miller, and Lang were able to demonstrate this in a profound way. It is certain that neither men nor women are clearly defined personalities, but rather vibrations, fluxes, schizzes, knots. The ego refers to personological coordinates from which it results. Persons in their turn refer to familial coordinates, and we shall see what the familial constellation refers to in order to produce individuals in its turn. The task of schizoanalysis is that of tirelessly taking apart egos and their presuppositions, liberating the pre-personal singularities they enclose and repress, mobilizing the flux they would be capable of transmitting, receiving, or intercepting, establishing always further and more sharply the schizzes and the breaks well below conditions of identity, and assembling the desiring machines that countersect everyone and group everyone with others. For everyone is a little group, un groupuscule, is a little groupuscule, and must live as such, or rather like the Zen tea box broken in 100 pieces, whose every crack is repaired with cement of gold, or like the church tile whose every fissure is accentuated by the layers of paint or lime covering it. the contrary of castration, which is unified, molarized, hidden, scarred, and unproductive. Schizoanalysis is so named because throughout its entire process of treatment, it schizophrenizes instead of neuroticizing like psychoanalysis. I said there's a lot here. 2 parts, big chunk, big aim. As they talk about the positive task, and again, if you remember, we went through the first destructive task. The destructive task is that of the destruction of the normative ego, the stories around it. They're laying it more plainly here. The beginning of the first destructive task, they really build out how it's really about narrative, symbolic structures, and eliminating that and sort of setting free the impulsive indices of things. And as we're making our way through this, you're going to sort of see again, but this is them saying there's a failure at a base level to the psychoanalytic approach that not only does psychoanalysis, as they say, fail to correctly evaluate social production, but it fails to understand the schizophrenic process and its relationship with schizophrenic as sick person. It fails at a base level to understand not just the process of schizophrenia, but the nature of schizophrenia, how it plays with things, how the schiz, the and instead of exclusive disjunction, how it shifts. And for them, because this is sort of how psychoanalytic thought works, it's about neuroticizing. The neurotic is one who serves social control, who cares about social control to an extreme level. And psychoanalytic thought pushes people towards that. It creates neurotics from everything else. It builds that. The neurotic is the presumed state that is continually dealt with, that must be constantly sort of tended to by the psychoanalyst. This is the healthy point is the neurotic. They're not going to cure it. Not a thing that they fucking do. Not their sort of intention. And because of that, they have the family. One conforms to the family's mission, which is to produce neurotics by means of Oedipalization, by means of psychic repression, Oedipal triangulation, and blocking revolutionary potential that would threaten the existing order, the schiz, at a base level. That's sort of the beginning here. They are going to start getting here into a handful of other thinkers. I'll do my best to sort of talk about them, but that's kind of their push. But before they do, they say, we don't feel any need to attach the slightest importance to psychoanalysis' claim to cure neurosis, since for it, curing is infinite maintenance. That's their joke is perpetuation. This is that little sardonic sense of humor that they exhibit. Deleuze exhibits quite a bit. Guattari, I think more so, but
I don't get the humor here. I don't find it funny whatsoever for some reason.
Well, it's not really funny. It's not really, it's humor in the sense of like,
it's a dark humor.
There is, in Freud, there is interminable analysis is the baseline of it. For Lacan, it's the castration complex is actually like the healthy position to be in. The normativity of all of it, the perpetuation of the illness, the maintenance of the neurotic structure through castration, and the reproduction of neuroses across generations as the father Oedipalizes the child by including the child in their own Oedipalization neuroses. The replication of these things is the setup, the establishment of conditions where the subject is able to spread to pass sickness to his offspring rather than dying celibate, impotent, and masturbatory. And that's when I say sardonic, I mean, it's a really dark comment, but if psychoanalysis wanted to cure the neurotic, if they wanted to cure neuroticism, they would basically ensure that the person's not reproducing. But that's not what they do, because it's about reproducing the system and Oedipalization and castration in the next generation over and over and over, replicating it into everyone. And that's the next line, perhaps it will be discovered that the only incurable is the neurotic, whence interminable psychoanalysis. They kind of say, this is just ironic reversal at play, as I read it, at least. This is a psychosis is claimed to be, in psychoanalytic thought, the actual thing that is incurable. It's a truly incurable condition. But they're saying, hey, by the way, maybe we'll discover that neurosis is incurable because there is an endless duration to the way that it functions. And with that, they say it's cause for self-congratulations. A psychoanalyst proudly talks about how they transform a schizo into a paranoiac or a neurotic, how they make their move from one to the other, but that this is actually like defeat by how we're talking about the schiz, how these things actually function, because you've actually converted the productive schizophrenic into a restrictive paranoiac or a self-repressing neurotic. And this transformation entails so many misunderstandings for them. The schizo is the one who escapes the Oedipal, the familial, the personological references. The schizophrenic escapes these things. They're not overly trapped in them. It's complete misunderstanding of the condition. Because they say the question is first, if that is what makes him ill, did he has escaped the personological, the Oedipal and the familial? If that he is not properly Oedipalized, if that's what makes him ill, or if on the contrary, that it is the schizophrenic process, which is not an illness, not a breakdown, but a breakthrough, however distressing and adventurous. The experience of it is horrifying, can be awful. It is distressing to people around them. But breaking through the wall or limit separating us from desiring production is kind of what's happening here, causing the flux of desire to begin circulating, causing him to... It's let's break down the wall. Again, it's across the wall is I think the original French. But the point is to say that schizophrenia is not necessarily pathology. It's not pathological. It's revolutionary breakthrough, symptomatic of revolutionary breakthrough, revolutionary change. Again, not in the person who is the clinical entity, different story, but that this is desiring production breaking through, crossing this wall, making its way over and through these things. And then they get into Lang and Jasper and all of this stuff. Jasper was a phenomenology-based psychiatrist. I hate words.
You mean Carl Jasper?
Carl Jasper, yeah.
Yeah.
He was a phenomenal. I can never say the fucking word. I don't know why. He was big into phenomenology and phenomenological.
Yeah.
And Lang took Jasper and ran with it, which basically recognized schizophrenia as meaningful journey. Prior to this, and even I think we still have a view of this, that the journey of the schizophrenic is actually one that is meaningful. Before that, we didn't have that. Before it was similar to how we would treat psychosis as a thing, that it was full breakdown, improper use, all of this stuff, when it's actually slightly different than that and a different play. And that's kind of the play Lang went with, starting from certain intuitions remain ambiguous in Jasper's, he will indicate the incredible scope of his voyage. Because Lang was very open to what Jasper's was doing. I don't want to get into Jasper's and Lang right now, though. We have some interesting books in the QC on Lang. Lang is not someone who there's very little work on. His own work, absolutely, but also work around it, because the anti-psychiatry movement was a huge fucking deal, and Lang was formative to it. So there's a lot there. But it's not just Lang, it's also with Miller or Lawrence. D.H. Lawrence, authors, writers. Miller, wonderful, sort of odd writer as well. A lot of sex, a lot of desire-based writing. And Deleuze has been always referencing these guys. I'm a big fan of Lawrence myself, but all of these guys were able to demonstrate this in a profound way. It is certain that neither men nor women are clearly defined personalities, but rather vibrations, fluxes, schizzes, and knots. Instead of having a personal understanding of subjectivity, instead of that, we understand that there is dynamic processes. It's a post-personal understanding of subjectivity, which is not an easy thing to sort of make your way to. We saw that in a handful of YouTube videos last night, but it's kind of the big deal. It's post-personal. All of this work is, I would argue, Lacan is significantly post-personal during most of his sort of journey as well, although he's not as explicit about it. But for sure, Lawrence, Miller, and Lang are doing that. Miller's writing is exceptionally based in this way. Lawrence wrote extensively about his vitalist sort of psychology in a lot of ways that are wild. Lang's entire idea of knots is actually about like interpersonal dynamics as being the primacy rather than you as an ego developing and having a certain sort of thisness to it. And that's their thrust. They say the ego refers to personological. Sorry, let me move to the right page. It's right here in the middle. The ego refers to personological coordinates. I have all my notes up. It's kind of, I get lost. Sorry. The ego refers to personological coordinates from which it results. Persons in their turn refer to familial coordinates. We shall see what familial constellation refers to in order to produce individuals in its turn. They're kind of going through the hierarchical chain of determination that ego emerges from personological coordinates, but persons emerge from familial coordinates, familial from society, national coordinates, national from internet. Like they're saying it's like a Matryoshka doll almost of personological coordinates that are always dependent or created by something outside of it. But that's not their project. They've been explicitly arguing against that for this entire fucking time, I would argue. What is an exclusive disjunction? The disjunctive is when we think of it as almost sets. When we start organizing things out and we are deciding, is something like another thing? Is this that? Yeah, yes or no? And it's that something is connected or able to connect or not. An exclusive disjunction is where we say it's either this or it's that. Logic gates. Think of it that way, kind of. Man or woman, exclusive disjunction. Inclusive disjunction is replacing that with the man, either or, man or woman, and or both or neither. It's a very minor thing in logic, but it's kind of the thrust of all of this, because when you start seeing how it operates, when we realize kind of how it comes through the impulses, the exclusive disjunction is sorting into predetermined categories, whereas the inclusive disjunction is one that allows predetermined categories to overlap or not be included at all, and also to include further things. So there's a lot more going on there. And that's kind of one of their big things. Sorry, quick answer to YouTube. So they say, the task of schizoanalysis is that of tirelessly taking apart egos and their presuppositions, liberating the pre-personal singularities they enclose and repress, mobilizing flux they would be capable of transmitting, receiving, or intercepting. And they go through a sort of a whole bunch of these elements. The entire program, they set up front, the destructive part, is the elimination of the ego, the dismantling of the structures of it, the pre-personal singularities, the things within that are being trapped by it, freeing those, enabling those, allowing them to get out. This is Simondon's individuation. I've been pushing Simondon a lot more lately because he's been speaking to me quite a bit. His books are really good. deeply underread. But it is that thing. It's understanding that it's not really an ego, that you are more or less meta-stable, not singular, not crushed into that, but this larger collection of patterns that are constantly sort of self-reinforcing or reinforcing other things or being reinforced and shifted by those around you. You are this massive arrangement of relations. You are not a singular thing. No one is. This is about pre-personal. Again, pre-personal, eliminating the ego. That's the whole point. The individual is multiplicity, not unity. And the examples they use, and I've always liked it, the kintsugi, if you've never done it, kintsugi is actually kind of amazing. It's not a thing you're going to get right your first time, so don't get discouraged. But Japanese kintsugi is where you take a saucer and you actually rebuild it with gold-laden cement or glue. It's a very particular type of glue. There's a whole traditional practice. There are cheaper ways to do it that look kind of just as good unless you want to spend a lot of money. But the philosophy of kintsugi is not that you are concealing the breaks. You are repairing this piece of porcelain, this cup, this here it is in tea box broken in places. The cracks are made and repaired in gold because the cracks are the thing. It's actually drawing your eye to them. It's a design philosophy aesthetically that they're attached to directly rather than conceal breaks. Actually refuse the unity. Absolutely refuse the unity. And because it's not, the cup isn't a unity at that point. You see the breaks, you see the cracks. The cracks and the breaks are part of that unity. Well, that's because it's not a unity, it's a multiplicity. And the entire thing that they're pushing here is that. This is the play at the base of it. Creating multiplicities like Japanese kintsugi is about highlighting art and experience and philosophy and selfhood that reveals productive breaks rather than conceals, that opposes the castration's unifying tendency. We want to schizophrenize rather than neuroticize, more or less. I think that's the way to put it.
Why is that? Because the narcotic puts us in familiar relations, and it puts us in kind of like the ego kind of relation, right? It refers to the kind of personological, right? But like the personological kind of like, it's kind of like, I don't understand the personological, could you elaborate on personological?
Yeah. So, I mean, we mean personhood. So you as a singular person that has singular drives or wants, the simplest version, and then I'll get into kind of the psychoanalytic side of things with these terms, and LJ can correct me at any point if I'm generally off. But people tend to come at AO and they have this discussion about desire. And they think when they're talking about desire, they're talking about someone's wants. Like, hey, I want to get off here and go take a nap because I've barely slept and I'm super fucking tired. Sure, but that's not desire. This is that understanding. That's like a post-personal want. Pre-personal is far more complex, and there's a lot more happening here because we are we are a multiplicity of many different drives and many different parts and many different pieces that are put together, arranged in a way. And when we tend to see breaks in that, when people feel and experience breaks in their personhood, their totality, it's a distressing experience because we tend to think of ourselves as singular total wholes. And they're saying, actually embrace that the distressed lack of grounding that comes from the multiplicity rather than the singular is the point. So in traditional psychoanalytic thought, generally speaking, the neurotic as a thing is one that accepts the familial, the Oedipal. It's one that understands their personal category and identity. They talk in a way. These guys refer to it basically as a tiny colonial world, like you have your own. but it is someone who accepts the family structure and is experiencing the tension of that position. So Woody Allen, which I know is a dated reference, especially for kids today who only know him as the horrifying nightmare of a human being. But he used to make movies, and they used to be quite good, that sort of dealt with neurotic as a person and someone who's constantly there. Curb Your Enthusiasm is a neurotic personality, Larry David. Someone who basically cares so greatly about the etiquette or the social world, or believes everything is there and it's quite real. And so when someone cuts in line, it's an injustice to the world. It's not just someone cut like that thing happening. There's larger things. So this is the neurotic. The schizophrenic is one that doesn't have identity categories. There's someone who doesn't really say daddy, mommy, or doesn't understand them in that way, connects things in ways that make no sense socially or at large. And this is like through this, and the setup is saying, hey, what it is saying, we're making good, obedient citizens. Pardon me. We're making good, obedient citizens. The other is ones who are unproductive. Look at, what are they even doing? Look at these schizophrenics over there. And when we think of that thing, we push people towards neuroticizing. We push people towards it. And their argument is more or less that instead of curing a neurotic, because a neurotic will go to a psychoanalyst forever, what they really do is they in turn neuroticize everything. Instead of basically helping that person break apart their ego or anything like that, it's quite the opposite. They move in a very different direction. They make everything have an ego, more or less. They personalize everything and symbolize everything. And so when you transform a schizo into a paranoiac or a neurotic, they celebrate, but what they're celebrating is the defeat of the productive potential that collection of desiring machines could have.
Yeah. But what kind of potential that?
Potential.
And that's
just potential. Yeah. Just potential. A neurotic doesn't have potential in the same way. Their relation to social production is basically the reduction of everything to family dynamics and the way things are. That's what a neurotic's basic position is they go, hey, look, that's just the way things are. That's just the way things are. That's the way things are. This is what we do. Don't you understand that this is the way things are? And that reduction of everything to this and to that symbolization, it's total. It's complete. A schizophrenic.
Like the people who,
go ahead.
Like for example, like, oh, I'm working for my family, right? Because I have family business for I think 5 hours, right?
Well, they channel all of their productive capacity or any revolutionary capacity into what they're calling familial channels. And sort of redirecting desire to these places that are safe. And again, they don't exist in like a happy position. The neurotic is never happy as a thing, but they basically deal with things and see the social space and the contradictions of it as personal failure, personal inadequacy, how I did wrong, why I could have done better, and how it's my fault. It's the neurotic's continuous position is not to go, hey, I can't feed my family. What the fuck is wrong with you, society? You're supposed to be this great thing. Instead, they go, God, I can't feed my family. What a failure I am.
They internalize that.
Correct.
They internalize. Yeah. They internalize that, and it's the problem with me, not the problem with society, not the problem with kind of the association, the social production, all of these things, the aggregate, the molar aggregate, these kind of things. The problem with kind of me and the problem, and they internalize this kind of, that's what I understand from you. Like they internalize this kind of thing, right? But what's the implication of the neurotic, Brooks? May I ask this question? If kind of like, what's the implication? Like even after we crush even if we turn society to be narcotic, what's the implication of that? That's my question.
Well, capitalism and the fascism. Like
exactly.
Fascism.
Yeah.
Because as
Yeah.
everything is sort of reduced to family, me, all of those things, that's the entire point for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Hope philosophy is not the center of that because it's way too many words and readings. Schizophrenizing as a thing, again, it's very important to understand what they're talking about. The language makes everyone move towards thinking of the traditional filmic production that exists for actors when they're like, oh, I'm going to go schizo. That's random, happy tree, weird, fucking pink key, that kind of thing. There's some of it there, but the book could be called, the entire project could be called Autism and Autismalysis, because the schizophrenia they're speaking of is primarily what we do call autism today from a mental perspective. It does involve schizophrenic patients, yes. But again, the way we speak of these terms, the colloquial way, and I would say even the clinical way, actually, primarily the word has shifted from being schizophrenic to being autistic. For a very long time, and I mean, this is the guy who invented these words, basically created schizophrenic clinical entities and the conditions that sort of surrounded this, and then went, hey, this is appearing later in life in this way, early in life in this way. And so it was called childhood schizophrenia, was autism, and so they basically diagnosed autism as childhood schizophrenia. Now we understand that there's actually very rarely does something appear in someone's 40s, 50s, or 60s, that people are sort of built into this over time. And so we have autism, we understand as its own conditions, and actually schizophrenia is a part of that. It's a really amazing shift. There's a wonderful paper, Roger, and I need to just do a reading of it and post it, that is about the history of these two terms and how they function and how they work, and it's really amazing. Roger posts it all the time. I'm going to make sure it's in chat. One moment, because I just go back and forth with Roger all the time on this. I'm going to make sure I repost it again. 1 second. From Roger. I think it's like in his last set of posts. Lots of Trump jokes. Not a shock. There it is. I have no idea how many times I have dropped this text in here. There, we'll do that. And I'm just going to directly drop it in the Discord chat. And hey, Discord people, by the way. Thank you for being here. YouTubers, if you'd like to join us live, you can. We're here at the QC. There's a bunch of readings, all kinds of good ones all week. It's pretty amazing. And lots of random stupid shit that happens here all the time. So please join up, discord.gg/DGQC. I am going to start tapping out though, because we are done for the day for me. And I'm going to send you off to, see Sundays, doing some reviews, maybe watching my video and maybe shitting on it. Who knows? That'll be interesting. But I want to say thank you all for joining. If you want to support and continue to support, super chats and memberships are lovely, but the best way you can support is by heading over to Patreon, patreon.com/DGQC. Drop a cup of coffee makes a big deal and big difference. And it's deeply appreciated, and I will say thank you, and I'll see you soon enough.